with young age. So also like this example shows you that there may be like these artifacts in the data. Maybe this data set old people didn't love enough, and there was the thing that only young people love, and associates this feature with age. And this example shows you that there may be like these artifacts in the data, and we need to be very careful when we apply AI in sensitive applications. And we need to look under the hood and to understand what's going on, and to be able to verify the prediction. And we have the techniques today. So neural networks are no black boxes anymore. At least we can assign. We can compute these heat maps. We can see like where the important information comes from. And we'd be happy to discuss with you about this topic. Thank you very much.
Any questions from the audience? Please.
Yes, the examples you gave were visual, where it was easy to see a heat map. Do you have something equivalent for things that are more textual or language-based?
Yeah, so we also applied it for text classification. There we have these relevances for words. So if you classify a text or analyze some text, then you can see like which words are particularly important for this classification decision. We also applied it for EEG data. Then you can also get some meaningful interpretations if you know how to read EEG signals. Currently we're applying it for fMRI data. So you can, in principle, you can apply it to like all domains, but of course, like for us, it's very easy to interpret these heat maps visually. If you have like some signals, like sensor measurements, it may be harder to understand what these relevances mean. But for text, for EEG, for fMRI, it also works.
And our colleagues recently also found a way to solve the Schrödinger equation 10 to the power of times faster than with methods, and it was also applied there. So we try to use machine learning as a tool. It's really more for us. We are engineers, computer scientists, physicists, chemists. We see it as a tool to have some progress. And what I'm sometimes seeing is that there is this overwhelming, the questions are sometimes much too big when you look at what machine learning can do. It's like, are we gonna have a Terminator scenario? Are we gonna model the entire world? No, there's a limit to computation ability. We can't even compute a quantum state, so we cannot even model then 10 quantums or 1 billion quantums, at least with what we got. So we have to basically figure out what we should learn on and what data we should use, what are the important ones that actually help the planet and that help these sustainability goals, that help humans and others. And then second, once we are there, we should apply vortex or similar methods to actually verify that what we learned actually is generalized to the actual problem. Imagine you have these artifacts in your credit line approval process, and you don't know why you won't be granted credit, for example, etc., etc. So I hope that people who are actively researching AI and machine learning are careful with their predictions of the future, because there are these very clear limits. We have a mathematical explanation for these limits when it comes to communication, and we have to have it also here. And otherwise, if in a few years the real progress through machine learning in really hard areas isn't showing up, like Schrödinger's equation, or chemistry, or biology, medicine, medical diagnosis. I'm still looking for this big cancer breakthrough in medical diagnosis through machine learning. If those problems don't get solved, then the hype curve will go down and the whole topic will suffer from it. So,
but I feel that sometimes the problem is in the judging criteria. It's very subjective. When we looked at those examples, I didn't see any problem. I think it's what you're feeding it, and if it's using statistical inference and so on and so forth, what you're feeding it is probably not sufficient. And if you were to feed it more, then it probably going to behave better, or maybe your engine into looking into certain things. What I'm trying to say here is that from our perspective, we're looking at it, we're like, okay, well, it's able to tell that it's a horse because of the thing at the bottom, and that's a good thing. That's you know, if it noticed that in many of the data provided, we provided the data, right? So it's so I'm not sure if I actually see the problem from the same perspective that was indicated, because I think the judging criteria might be very subjective.
So you don't think it's necessary to have human inspection on what the machine learning is doing?
Well, I think the human inspection is subjective, so I'm not sure if I agree with the human inspection. The human inspection is very subjective in you know, detecting whether it's doing its job or not. It doesn't necessarily have to do its job the way we do our job. It's subjective to the way it's doing its job, and that's my point. Is that if we're subjective in judging it, in its doing a certain job, perhaps we should focus on, rather than judging it, we should focus on what are we feeding it. If we're feeding it wrong data, if we're giving it wrong engine to do certain thing, we need to address those rather than focus on the judging criteria. Because judging criteria will always be subjective.
Yeah, the rest of the world was looking at data. I mean, it used to be the focus in AI development in the 80s and 90s was like, there's 3 pillars to AI development, right? There is a math model that's translated into algorithms, right? There's a data sets, and then there's a computing power. If all 3 of those are not aligned, then your stuff doesn't work. So the focus, like decades ago, was on the math models and the algorithmic, and now everyone's saying it's data, right? The wider the data set, the more diverse it is, the better your machine learning. So I don't really...
But I guess the premise over here was that what that algorithmic, what that logic is, needs to be investigated. And if that logic, which is not investigated...
Yeah, no, you're not saying anything differently. I'm just saying that there's 3 pillars, so where do you look? Do you look at the data, or do you look at the algorithms? And most people, the rest of the world is saying look at the data.
I think I agree partly with you that looking at the data is very, very important and may prevent some of these effects which we saw. But it's also not an easy problem, right? If you have like millions of images, and how do you make sure that you are not that you get all these biases, and that you make sure that the data is representative, that it doesn't have any flaws? I think it's also not easy. It can be one part, but still I think looking at the model is also important, especially if you apply, for example, this to science, to physics. Certain quantities, for example, cannot be negative, and it may be reasonable to make sure that your model also assigns like assigns relevances which like reflect like physical laws.
Yeah, it's use specific, but it's not always a model. In fact, more people say, more the data scientists and AI practitioners in the world would argue with you. Always go back to your data sets, reclassify, clean, and put it through again. That's, I mean, I'm just saying from, for consumer-based AI or human-centric AI.
Well, we'll leave it at there. Maybe have a discussion at the end. But nevertheless, our next speaker is Toufi Saliba, and he's gonna. Oh, 1 second. And Toufi co-authored a fully decentralized blockchain protocol, and he co-founded Toda Network, and he's the chair of the ACM Practitioners Board conference part, and we just met in New York on Friday because I'm advising there as well. And he is also the CEO of Private Shell, a 23 portfolio blockchain companies, and he had 4 exits and expecting 3 more in the future. So keep it rolling, Toufi, and looking forward to your talk.
I'm actually blushing now, but you can't see it on the video. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me here. The question that I put in is blockchain a branch of AI, or is AI a branch of blockchain? And it's I'm going to stick to the first part. Many it goes to what I've stated earlier, our subjective way of viewing intelligence and how we can define what intelligence is versus I think there's a certain consensus that we've all agreed on, and it was stated by Alex Wisner, and it's a force that acts so as to maximize the future freedom of action. Okay, so if you agree to that, and we start looking at certain elements and certain machines, what they're doing, are they intelligent or not, and how the bar is shifting from a certain thing that is called AI to now it's not called AI, because now we have an explanation of how it works, but before it was called AI. I don't remember the date because I wasn't born then, but apparently the calculator was considered AI. It was supposed to get rid of all accountants' job. I wish it did. Apologies to all accountants. I meant that you guys can get a better job. And then when it's done, it's not AI. Then we looked at the spreadsheets. Oh, wow, this is going to be AI. We looked at Google, the search. Are you going to be able to search and find information that quickly? That's going to be AI because it's impossible. When we can explain it, no, it's not AI. Now, when I look, and when we all look at an organism, and if I were to get a show of hands here by describing a certain organism that we create, okay, so it's artificial, that we would agree on. It's capable of defending itself, it's capable to live by itself, it's capable to provide incentives to people here in the room and other people outside of this room, possibly in the thousands, possibly in the millions, in order to enhance it, evolve it, and get to work on it. And it's able to be replicated and evolve without its creator. So if you were to say, okay, is that AI? Without giving me a show of hands, or if you would like to give me a show of hands, how many would think that that is AI? Okay, how many would think that this is not AI? Okay.
Well, you describe artificial life, not artificial intelligence.
Okay. So if we were to, I agree, I think this is what I've just described as probably artificial life. If you were to have the additional intelligence that itself evolves, would that make it artificial intelligence? It evolves by itself. Okay.
Can it learn and work from complete data?
Who doesn't think that this is AI? Show hands. Okay, we have like 2.38% of the room. I'm correct at doing that. AI thing. So we do have an example of those machines that's been running for 9 years and 3 months and several days, and it's called Bitcoin. And when we say it is Bitcoin, then most people they say this is not AI. It does not self-evolve. It doesn't do all those things. But when you compare it to, let's say, Homo sapien, how do you evolve, or how do you gain certain intelligence? How you're able to incentivize people, and so on and so forth? How are you able to get people around you to give you money so you can go and buy food, so you can go and do certain things, versus a machine that is able to incentivize people to give it money, to compete for resources that we have, compete for resources that other machines have, and so on and so forth. Perhaps we are subjective in viewing something that is self-evolving. It is self-evolving, incentivizing over 3,000 people. They work days and nights in its self-evolution. It's providing over 3 million jobs. It's got a market cap almost equivalent to the largest company on the planet today, and it will surpass every single company, and I bet my life on it. And nobody owns it. Not a single human owns it. It owns itself. So that's, if I were to say this is AI, and let's say we're able to convince you, I can still tell you that this is a very rudimentary shape of AI, but we need to start looking outside of our subjective way into identifying what is AI. And that's my argument here, what I'm actually bringing. Perhaps blockchain is a branch of AI that we would need to incorporate into a lot of the things that we're doing in AI for several reasons. And the most important one that I believe in is the autonomous decentralized governance. So many of the problems that they are indicated here in the room, and folks would say, okay, we need to have AI that is going to be, abiding by certain regulator or whatnot, or it's abiding by what we would like it to do, or what we think ethically it's so important to us. I disagree. This is not how it's going to work. If you were to be the president of a company or managing a certain process, and you have an AI engine that might screw 1,000 people's life or 100,000 people's lives, and it's not very ethical, but you're going to lose your job if you don't let it to do this certain thing, and you're never going to get a job again. What will you do? Nobody's going to find out it's going to screw 100,000 people's lives. You don't have to answer me, but deep down inside you, you know that what kind of choice we would make when we are faced with certain decisions, when you're going to look back at your kids and say, sorry kids, I can't feed you anymore because I lost my job because I had to make a conscious decision. I didn't want to screw 100,000 people's lives because it is not ethical. We will not make those kind of decisions, okay? So an ethical AI is something that I'm very skeptical of. We don't think of AI as a skeptical. We need to start thinking from crypto economics, what kind of thing is going to win more? And are we incorporating that in the governance of AI by design? And if you are not doing that, then we should be questioning a lot of things of what we've built to this humanity. Are we going to enslave humanity for the next 200,000 years, or we're going to liberate it? That is the question that needs to be answered, and how we're going to be providing governance of AI by design is the solution, and not by telling it. It's not going to respond in the future, I can guarantee you. A lot of folks that I've talked to, some of the top AI scientists, they say, oh, well, if you're afraid from AI, you can just turn the switch button off, or just unplug it. The entire Chinese government trying to turn off Bitcoin, and they cannot. And yes, called artificial life that is rudimentary, and I'm calling it AI, that it's also rudimentary, but an entire nation cannot turn it off. You're not going to have the chance to turn off AI if it's actually, answering a smaller group of people to do a certain thing that is not necessarily ethical. I think if we were to be concerned with AI, is not what it's going to do on its own, doesn't have the motive to enslave us. I think we need to be fearing AI if it's governed by a certain group of people that they might think that they are in control today, but they're not going to be the ones in control tomorrow. It's going to be a different group of people that the devil within them will act into making things that they are not ethical, not the machine by itself. If you look at the entire history of humanity, the worst evil that ever existed is human themselves to each other. And if we were to put so much power, like we did with the electronic money system that was supposed to be servicing each and every one of you, yet it's used as a method of control. You don't sense it because you live in a world that it's fantastic. But if you look at 70% of the world, when that money is used as a matter of control, people that they work the entire day to feed their family, they still have to respond to certain people that are controlling them if they can't take that money that they've worked for to feed their family. It was not supposed to be a method of control. It's supposed to be something that simplifies people's lives. If we do the same mistake with AI, we may not have the chance to fix that. And that is my message today. Thank you.
So there's a question in the back.
Hi guys. Okay. This is a question for both Rob and Toufi, then building off of your points. So how do we incentivize industry then using a system like from crypto economics for responsible AI? So maybe Rob has insights from working with industry So the argument is that blockchain has incentives, and this is what determines the activity in the system. How do we make sure that AI is responsible and ethical using such incentives? Because right now I don't see why industry has large incentives to self-regulate and self-govern, beyond not wanting to have a big accident and losing market share.
I'll let Rob answer first, because I think it's alphabetical, and R is before Toufi. Or
yeah, okay, I'll go with alphabetical order. I mean, I'm certainly no blockchain expert, so I'll let Toufi cover that bit. But I just think as we're starting to move AI use cases from ones of less consequence to ones that have got far more consequence, organisations simply have it in their interests to harness this in a more responsible and ethical way, because they will be exposed to risk. And I know we can debate all day long about advanced governance to protect, sort of the integrity of AI. But I think businesses already are very regulated, and businesses will hold back from adopting this at scale across the breadth of enterprise because they know they're going to unlock, risk. We know GDPR is 2 weeks away. There's clear risk of breach there, which is 4% of your global annual turnover. That would put companies into insolvency. We've already seen less consequential use cases lead to fairly significant reputational harm for companies. Maybe not all of them, some of them better than others. So I actually think there's already quite a lot of regulation in place that can be applied better than it is at the moment without over-regulating this. As for the future of how crypto regulates AI, I'll defer to my expert friend alongside me.
Thanks, Rob. A lot of responsibility, and honestly, I don't know the answer to that. And I can tell you with certainty that I've been in the industry since 2001. I've seen a lot of failures in crypto. I've seen a lot of successes, most recently. I personally came out of what we call the crypto closet in 2016, precisely in June. About 7 years ago, what I do was considered illegal in most of the nations across the globe. So was slavery about like 100 years ago, and I probably was a slave. But in any case, so to answer that question, what I have done, because I don't know the answer to it, because I know that we must find the answer, I've created something called AI Decentralized and presented it to ACM. As a chair of ACM, that I put it to be my responsibility. It's an altruistic thing. ACM is not for profit. And with AI Decentralized, it's geared to collide the AI practitioners with crypto folks. We have about 870,000 AI practitioners, 280,000 crypto folks, and we're hoping that the questions are the right questions, and if they can get the right answers, hopefully over the next few years, then perhaps we can continue doing what we have started, which is fabulous, which is the machine that can liberate the remaining of humanity's life or whatever left of it.
Okay, well, we have to move on. Our next speaker is Andy Chen. He's a renowned innovator and the IEEE Computer Society Board Chairman. Is that correct?
Wow.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And he's also VP of Professional and Educational Activities. He also runs as president CEO of a global consulting firm. And I'm glad that we have him. And on the time, we started 15 minutes later, so we will not stop 15 minutes earlier. So we'll have the session until 5:30. It was planned until 5:15, but we started 15 minutes later. So, okay, so we have 25 minutes left. So the speakers, please say what you want to say. Don't feel hurried. Don't feel rushed.
Thanks, Thomas. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. This is the end of the day. And I'm going to look forward a little bit more. What's in the future. This morning, on the opening keynote, Roger Penrose, who was just here, on the session, they asked 3 questions. Top 3 questions were, the first question I have here. So it's, how do you incent the young professional to not just go after the money, but go after the ethic itself, the good of the human? And the second one was talking about, so how do you know when it's going to be able to do some reasoning, to actually reasoning and think. And the third one saying, so when is it going to get the conscious? When is it going to be able to become conscious? So those three are really good questions. Now, the trick is, I think I've got all the answers. So let me show you our use case. I want to share with you our use case. Just go through my viewpoint. I think Robert Thomas did a really good job, so I don't really have to say anymore. Let me just go through. If you ever heard of DARPA, which is U.S. Defense Advanced Robotic Projects and agencies, it talked about 3 waves. The very first wave is back in the 60s when people started to figure out there's a problem and they go turn into the code and they actually executed certain tasks like calculators and others. And it's called the handcraft knowledge. The second wave, then after that, AI, we had a really long AI winter. It seems quiet for the longest time. Up until late 90s and 2000s, a new wave comes out about the neural network, machine learning and deep learning. They were now able to do something really significant and playing something really advanced. So they could play game, they could drive the cars, they could recognize your faces, and they could convert text to message and others. So it's very much data-driven. The more data it is, the better it is. The better decision of it, like we said before, not have data, they're going to make some mistakes. Now, the third wave is what they call the AI system or construct model that will explain how the world works. So this is what the third wave is. Now, today, I want to share with you about the third wave. We, as a venture capital company, we look around the world for investment in AI and blockchain. Me and my partner, Stephen Ibrahim, we look around and we look kind of I look over IEEE. We have 400,000 members across the globe. We have the top researchers. So I've seen a lot of good innovative approaches. But by far, what we thought, the use case that we're going to share with you is one of them that we haven't seen too many around. So it's called Mind AI. And it's not, what it is, it's a new symbolic paradigm. It's switched completely the other way. And it's used natural languages. So it could be any languages. English, Japanese, French, any language, it can do reasoning. And it uses augmented topologies network. Now I'm going to go through a little bit details about the concept of how that arrived. And it does linear qualitative reasoning process. So it can actually be traced back to how to make that decisions. How the decision was made, when you made a mistake, it's almost like a white box. You can actually clearly down to the basic unit of where the error is. And it's human understandable logic, something that we can understand. And one thing that I like a lot is that it doesn't need a lot of data. Now, I say, so how do you make decisions with no data? Well, I think that's the difference that I think that this engine seems to be able to drive. I'm not saying this is the best in the world, but this is certainly different. As I say, it's a transparency operations.
I'm sorry to jump in, but I have not seen anything better. And full disclosure, I'm not involved with that company whatsoever.
Okay. At least I got Toufi agree. Toufi never agreed with me, but today it's much. What is your drink?
Soju, how are you?
So it can do any languages. Okay. So let me play 2-minute videos about this Mind AI.
Artificial intelligence is the new arms race of our time. With the world's wealthiest corporations and nations hoarding the most innovative scientists, engineers, and researchers, It's deterring our collective brain power from creating projects that may solve global humanitarian crises, to merely producing systems for profit, surveillance, and war. The AI arms race rapidly progressed us through the second wave of AI, in which deep learning through brute force statistical computations led to superhuman achievements in several domains. Second wave systems produce extremely accurate results, but its mistakes can be fatal, as we've seen with recent autonomous vehicles. To make matters worse, it's extremely difficult to pinpoint what went wrong within these black boxes. Mind AI was created to tackle the limitations of these second wave systems and bring forth the third wave of AI. Mind is an artificial intelligence powered by revolutionary, internationally patented data structures to perform deductive, inductive, and abductive reasoning. By parsing natural language and breaking down information to its most fundamental level, mind is able to contextualize every detail. This entire process is transparent, allowing us to pinpoint and surgically correct exact points of error. We plan to open source the Mind Engine and distribute the ontological database to promote a democratization of power in the AI space today. Building a community of intelligent minds around the mind ecosystem can allow us to turn the tide of the AI arms race, promote benevolent progress rather than narrow self-interests, and ultimately advance humanity as one.
So you think, so how does it do that? Well, it has a pretty simple logical, the lowest unit is what they call a canonical unit. What it does is that model there, it allows you to adopt about the subject, an idea, or you can deduct what it is. And you have an inductive part where it actually trying to figure it out what's that different. What is the different? Say a mouse is an animal, but the mouse is whisker with whisker, but it's an animal. But you can also do with a bird with it has the wing. So my AI uses the basic canonical models to construct their database. And when there are different canonical units linked together, they call them as canonical, which is augmented network. So this is the reasoning part. The engine itself, with the ontologies database, which I'll talk in a minute, it could actually start doing reasoning, asking questions, developing ideas. The ontology versioning is something that you take the existing law, like knowledges, say general, just say gravity by Newton. But now we know there is a general relativity, which is a better idea of than the gravities. Now, that engines will go for the, if you want the newer versions, it will treat that, or you can also go back to the old versions. So the Mind ontology database, it's comparable. It says that, and today, that engine is almost as smart as 7 years old. Now, how do you do that? Well, maybe I'll explain to you in a minute. Well, somebody will explain to you in a minute. But it says that because it could learn, a year from now, it will be as smart as a college professor. So, one of the things that you introduce is called meta-theoretics. And this is once you gather together all the critical masses you need on the database, on ontology database, you can, the machine itself can start developing theories. It will come up with their own ideas, it will think itself. So that is what I think what separates disruptive part. One thing I like about it is that this is completely open. It's an open source. Everybody can contribute to it. And what it's trying to do is trying to democratize so that it's not power goes to the big corporations. It's going to give power back to everybody. So I want to talk about a little bit about the ethic everybody's talking about. So we talk about all different things. Since I'm in the scientific organizations, there are quite a few around the world that are doing the ethical design. And I just want to know that it's almost a global effort. We have European Parliament talking about setting a fund and having all the smart robot to register. And Stanford had this 100-year study, and British Standard Institute also have this ethical design. And ACM has these things called the ART. It's accountability, responsibility, and transparency. And Vicky was talking about that. We in AiForGood, we have the global initiative on this design ethic for autonomous and intelligent systems. So this is, we are looking for call for paper for people to contribute. This is our version 2. Be more than happy I was then developed it. The last part I want to talk about is cybersecurity. I think AI and cybersecurity is. As right now, we're using AI to do style things. We detect the fraud, a credit card with the speech recognition on the airport, and then we do image processing, and we have driving, self-driving cars. All of that, I think at the end of the day, we need to provide some proper training and education for not just the student, but for everybody to be able to catch up to it. So that was my message to you. But before you ask questions, I just want to introduce Paul Lee. He's the founder, one of the co-founders for Mine. So if there's any tough questions, I'll refer back to Paul. That's it.
Thank you very much. Could we maybe first hear from our next speaker, because we're a little late and I don't want you to not being able to say what you want to say, and then when she's done we go back to questions to Andy, and we can run over as long as you guys want, as long as the ITU starts complaining. So Suzanne is our speaker. She's a co-founder and CEO of MKR AI, and to give you the picture on her webpage for that company, it starts with the following sentence: "We live in an era of bullshit."
That's right.
And that's, I think, enough of an introduction. Because that's an excellent sentence. I like that sentence. So please go ahead and tell us what you want to say.
Can you hear me? Is this work? Okay, great. I'm the CEO and founder of MKR.ai. I use NLU, NLP, and sentiment analysis, machine learning algorithms to essentially build a souped-up bullshit detector, right? How that works is that everyone else is trying to crack and interpret the truth, right, for fake news, for false voice reports. It's always been my premise, having to build my own training corpus, that interpretation is too wide and mathematically impossible to model, right? Because every inference base that you have then has to have a numerical value, and then you're just snowballing GPU processing power and storage. So instead of treating it as a fact-checking problem, because as a journalist for 25 years, I knew that nobody really cared about the facts. I decided instead to do a dip into neurolinguistics, and I was only tracking patterns of deception, of which there was a rich 200-year history of study on in terms of propaganda and disinformation. Then I take that data and I run it through sentiment analysis for the intentional intent to evade, right? And then I grade it. And of course, in that process of training your AI, you have to, of course, take it out, classify it, clean it, and put it through. And in that process, you can actually weight the relationship between the words, so a line-by-line analysis, word-by-word analysis, and even weight, put a differential weight between the relationship between words. And then from that, I create original content around it, getting very famous skeptics like Penn and Teller or actors look into the camera and say, I think the story is 70% bullshit. These are my biases, and this is my methodology. And then you open it up for annotation for other people to then just give, volunteer, and crowdsource and validate their own citations. And what that's doing is basically shifting the conversation from I'm right to you're wrong to this is my methodology. My audience there is very, very thin margins, maybe the 5 to 7% of us who will be moved by reason and not by rhetoric. Right? So I started building this about a year and a half ago, and in the process, in the last year, I came across blockchain and cryptocurrency. Now, I know that sounds a little bit scary. There are people who will tell you that they love blockchain and they hate cryptos, and that's pure ignorance. You're missing the best part of what could be a great opportunity to create a tokenization model and fractionalize anything that we term value, right, into an asset that's measurable, definable, and shareable. And so how that works on my platform is that you give me a better citation than my celebrity guest, right? I reward you with tokens. The machine learning validates those results on demand, right? Those tokens then you can go trade for anything else, or you can hold on to it and access an open source platform that my business partners built to then be able to either build or train your own machine learning, right? So it's a democratization of AI, the model that I came up with. And so the way I look at it is that if we're looking for transparency of transactions, machine learning and AI really needs blockchain and cryptonomics behind it. Because there's going to be automated machine-to-machine transactions that you're not going to be aware of unless you want to go back over the data. Because of course, data is the only thing that doesn't lie. This is essential. So I'm also going to posit that blockchain, which is essentially just a data structure, and an unwieldy one at that, needs AI to validate the anomalies as well as the desirable results, because there's a pattern to all of human activity. The only way that we can bring this full circle and realize the full benefits of both these nascent technologies is to give sovereignty of data to each of the individual of people in society today, right? Everyone in modern cities and modern times, no matter what you do, you're kicking up data that is worth billions of dollars, except for there's Facebook and Google and all these behemoths, and they don't give you back anything for it. Instead, they take that data and they weaponize it to get you to buy more of their things, right? And so if you give people sovereignty over their data, they can then choose and decide and stratify which layers of that data they're going to volunteer into your system, and you can reward them with tokens for it. It moves faster, and it's more effective than regulation, because regulation is a two-step goal. Is it a law if A, you can't enforce it, and B, you don't know what you're tracking, right? So instead of having it be a twofold action, why don't you have aligned incentives? Give people sovereignty over their data, give them the choice of being able to share parts of that data, tokenize that model, and be able to reward them for things that they would use anyway, such as airtime on your phone, or be able to pay off parts of their electricity bill, something that they use all the time. Those examples that I've given you are actually in use in different parts of the world today, right? You can even tokenize. I'm working with a group called Mindfire Global out of Zurich here in Europe. They're tokenizing the future IP of the top neuroscientists and neurologists in the world today towards development of general AI. The reason why this makes for a safer AI is because it's more human. It understands what human interaction is, what human experience is, and it creates a working framework in a market whereby researchers and people who've devoted decades of their lives can then monetize parts of that IP in a safe and trustless, transparent system that doesn't exist today in either academia or large parts of the market. So blockchain and cryptos allows anyone to really open up a trustless system where it makes it an open invitation to collaborate and incentivizes them and aligns them, where that doesn't exist in AI today. In their parts of the world, everyone is developing AI. It is the new arms race, and data is the new gold. We've gone from commodity-based economy to an information economy, and then Web 2.0 gave us the knowledge economy, right? The value was in who you know and what you know, and now you're looking at a data-driven economy. And the more that we recognize this and create systems for collaboration instead of enforced regulation, I think is the better way to go. Thank you.
So other questions for Suzanne? Please.
Hello. Yeah, so just on the onset, 100% agree with all what you've said, but the place where I'm skeptic about is, we talk about democratizing data, giving people the power. Where I'm skeptic is, do really people really care about it? You know, as we saw the example of Facebook, when Mark Zuckerberg was giving his testimony in the Senate, his value went up by $9 million, just in that duration of 6 hours.
Well, so those markets, by the way, are corrupt. I don't believe in stocks. The only thing that I believe less in stocks is probably statistics, right? I want to go back to the data in the space. I mean, and all of that is driven by sentiment and splash. But to your point, I think people do care. I just don't. I think they're just lulled into a sense of apathy where they don't realize that what they can do about it, and the way that it's like when you show someone what could be, right, and you show them how much they can make, and you show them by giving them a token and showing them how a system works, then they can't go back to it. Because you can't unknow something that you know can work better and can work better towards you, right? For your own benefit. So I do believe that people care.
Just furthermore to that point, beyond the caring of people, what I like about that model, it introduces economics into the equation. And if at the end of the year you're generating, let's say, $400 of data that you choose to sell it to Facebook, at the end of the day, then Facebook may not necessarily have that money to buy it from you because you're the one who's making money. So if you're equating all of that, then you can bring that sovereignty to the user or take it away from them by paying the price for it. It's a much fairer than the day that we live in today. And the other thing that I like of what Susan said is the weaponizing it, and this is something that not a lot of people pay attention to when it comes to the invasion of the privacy and confidentiality of people. It's more like the frog in the boiling water.